This week on the Supahuman Podcast.
Within, let's say, ChatGPT is 100% accurate, you always have to verify and clarify. You know, what they're doing now is potentially using AI to help come up with different drugs or different mechanisms or different ideas on how to approach situations that we haven't quite got as much leverage in.
Walk me through your thought process of how much labor and thought needs to go into being taught how to think when essentially these tools now are essentially starting to think for you.
Really, you start to see the snowball effect in the design world with it. It was talked about, people were scratching the surface, and I think now we're going to see companies now that are going to start to look at how this can not only cut cost, but also be very effective for short-form advertising.
Do you see the value of art increasing over time that's physically crafted because of the fact of the amount of AI art that's going to exist? Jennifer is a microbiologist and biochemist who has started her career as an academic and has recently transitioned her career to being a pioneering artist in the world of AI. Now as a published artist, we talk chemistry, art, and of course, a little bit of AI. Enjoy. So, how does a microbiologist end up in a full... Firstly, how does a microbiologist from the US, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up here? Like, walk us through that.
So I was always really into hiking and exploring the outdoors. And my dad had moved out to Colorado, and I spent a lot of time in Colorado. Specifically, I was living in... I was woofing at a place called Earth Mountain Education Farm in southern Colorado. And I really loved that. I met some really cool people. I did a lot of backpacking. And then I realized I really wanted to experience something outside of my norm, something outside of the United States. So I got my master's degree, I had publications. The next step was to kind of investigate where I wanted to live and go. You know, I'm half first-generation American, so it's just in my blood to go to a different country. And yeah, I ended up in New Zealand. And that was
and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So biochemistry, scientific background, researcher as well?
So I got my master's degree. I have 2 publications in the Journal of Bacteriology. And I also have my bachelor's in feminist gender sexuality studies.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, like, in terms of like the industries that you're involved in, the former being the scientific academic community, it is evident that AI is playing a huge part in revolutionizing that from a research perspective. I mean, your former colleagues, the people that you did your studies with, how are you still connected to that? And what do you like? What's your thoughts on the change that's happening in that community right now?
When I came to New Zealand, I kind of fell into the food industry. And so I started working, kind of helping companies. And I worked with one business and helped them develop kind of their food product. So from that standpoint, I mean, it can become really helpful just for understanding background knowledge. I think just doing a little bit of background research. Obviously, not everything within, let's say, ChatGPT is 100% accurate. You always have to verify and clarify. But just helping you collate information can be really useful. In terms of where people are going with science, I mean, you can look at, you know, what they're doing now is potentially using AI to help come up with different drugs or different mechanisms or different ideas on how to approach situations that we haven't quite got as much leverage in. You know, even with cancer research right now, you can see that they're starting to potentially, for drug design, even use AI. I mean, we're heading into a place where things that would have taken us a long time or things that maybe we aren't seeing, AI has the potential to show us.
I think it's interesting to see the speed at which that change will happen within the scientific community, in that the academic process is an academic process, but the commercial aspect of science, be it, say, big pharma, for example, is all about the dollars. Yeah. And therefore, you know, how do you look at a highly leveraged scientific environment like pharmaceuticals and then go, okay, well, people have come here from academic backgrounds, but the use of technology is all about creating a force amplifier for creating profit, right?
Yeah.
But you've got, I mean, you started with a food organization here, food manufacturing?
So I initially came here and I took kind of like a bit of a year off. I worked as a health consultant at an organic shop, and then I kind of met companies within the industry and just started getting involved and talking with them and seeing how I could use my science to help them develop products. I'm really interested in health foods and really felt like functional foods were going to be the future. And so, I kind of got involved a little bit in developing for my own business, a raw chocolate that was filled with probiotics. And I got involved in kind of helping other companies develop functional foods.
The interesting thing for me is that when I looked at your background and when we first started working together on a few different projects, it was like, well, there's this blend of academia, which gives you a very structured, I guess it's a structured process, and it's a culture in itself, an academic culture. But you've managed to make the quite sizable leap from full academia into business, which is interesting from my perspective because I have a very limited academic appetite within my own, I guess, approach to work. I mean, I've been vocational since I ever came out of school. I mean, I'm get my hands dirty, let's get this done. But I do see extreme success in those that have managed to take both sides of that value equation and go, okay, academic plus real-time business application, how that's flowed. So, talk me through that transition because you're the other side of the coin now. You're out of academia.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to, when I was at university, I wanted to learn a trade, and university in the United States is really expensive. So science paid me. It paid me to work. I got a free master's degree. Wesleyan University had a fifth-year master's program. And so I took every opportunity I could to get as much education as I could, for a better price. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to learn something that was going to teach me how to think. And science was that, right? You can repurpose the scientific method to basically anything. And that's what I did. Mm-hmm. I just was like, okay, I want to understand X, Y, Z. I'm going to research it. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to come up with ideas. I'm going to take it further. And then I'm going to develop it. Mm-hmm. So, with anything new that I've taken, I take the scientific method with me and my thinking in the way I was trained. And so it just made sense to then go into where I ended up in my last position was at Emeritus in an education technology company. And so I just utilized my scientific skills to help teach myself marketing. And you realize that, hey, actually, we can use data for marketing. Mm-hmm. We can find scientific ways to approach marketing that otherwise might be missed by somebody with a normal marketing degree.
You mentioned something there which was interesting. So teaching a way for someone or an environment to learn how to think. Mm. In schooling these days, or even into the future, not necessarily these days, where there's going to be far more, I guess, aggressive technology use than we've ever seen before with the use of AI in schools, etc. Walk me through your thought process of how much labor and thought needs to go into being taught how to think when essentially these tools now are essentially starting to think for you. And is that a skill that you see as likely to be less proficient at?
I actually this isn't the first time somebody's asked this, actually. I think critical thinking is going to be important because you have to know what questions to ask with AI to get the response you want. Now, will prompting disappear one day? Maybe, but you're still going to need some form of critical thinking in order to approach a situation and to analyze the output as well of what you're getting from the AI. So, people are like, oh, should we be teaching prompting? Should we be teaching this? Should we be teaching that? I think we need to teach critical thinking. Mm-hmm. Also, as we're going into the world, we're going to have more deepfakes. We're going to have a lot of ethical components to what we're doing. That requires also critical thinking and thinking outside the square. So you need to identify, hey, is this accurate? Hey, is this real? On top of, I want to solve X, Y, Z. How do I ask that question properly? How do I frame it? How do I deeply dive into what I want to accomplish? And I think, at least for the foreseeable future, we still need that. Mm.
It's going to be, I feel like the challenge is going to be in the self-discipline to be self-critical, in that something that looks real, smells real, tastes real, and feels real. Yeah. The path of least resistance is to assume that it is real. And we are seeing that, it's just the technology available that we engineer is magical. Yeah. And you want it to be real, and the guide rails and discipline to go, actually, you know what? I'm just not going to believe this. It's no different from probably what me and you more used to growing up with, which is believing everything that's on the internet. It's just, it's just a different version of that, but it's far more convincing. I don't know whether teachers are equipped to do that or whether universities are equipped to kind of focus on the critical aspect of thinking.
Yeah, and I think also there's the double-edged sword of it is like, where do we get too critical and where do we kind of stop freedom of thought to a degree, freedom of speech, and where do we go from there? So I think it's a really tough spot, and that's why I think it's good that we speak about it now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's going to be definitely something to watch for in the future.
So you mentioned freedom of thought. freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And I think it's fair to say where you've landed with your career right now is very much in expression, now as a published artist. So well done.
Thank you.
Talk us through your first publication. Like, what does it feel like to be out there now?
It still doesn't quite feel real because I feel like, when you're in a candle store and you're sniffing all the candles and eventually you end up not being able to smell anything. I feel like I've spent so much time looking at imagery that I look at it and I go, this is all right. And I'm like, you don't really feel like when you're in it and you're focused on something, you don't realize the impact it has or what I want people to feel when they see what I do. But I'm so immersed in what I'm doing. I think I need to take a little step back and actually be like, wow. But for me, it's just eye on the prize, keep going, keep, creating, and to really remain humble because nothing is guaranteed. So right now I'm, really excited. It's surreal. It's surreal.
Well, let's pause for thought there because I think it's important that everyone understands the journey that you've gone on from transitioning from a highly academic career through to now being a published AI artist. And we've got to take a look at a bit of some of your work in a second. Well, walk me through that transition. Where did your thoughts go? Like, what was the pivoting point?
So it was like 2021, I started working at Emeritus. So I'm the first New Zealander to ever work there. I worked alongside the Vice President of Growth Partnerships and the Operations Manager for events, and we developed a marketing events engine. And I was basically looking at our production and how we were running our webinars from live to on demand and realized there were a lot of inefficiencies and it was quite costly. And so I kind of took that into my hands and started just playing around with researching because before that I had no video editing skills per se. I'm not trained in any of it. So I just started researching, hey, we need to get rid of certain words here. How do we do that? Like, what technology could we use that would edit based on transcript? And then I started finding different software or, software as a service, basically online. And it was using AI. And at that point, nobody was really talking about AI. It wasn't a big thing. And so I ended up saving the company $30,000 in a month with ongoing cost savings and kind of took control of our production. And then as time went on, somebody had made a fumble in what they were saying. And I was like, oh, we don't need to reshoot anything. We can actually create an AI rendering of their voice and solve the problem. And that's around the time when ChatGPT started coming out and everyone's going, AI. And Emeritus, they work with top-tier universities. You're dealing with Stanford, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, Wharton, Columbia, all of them. And so, you start to hear AI as a topic that they're going to start bringing in executive education courses. Professors are talking about it. So when I said that I was like, oh, I've been using this for a while now. I got a lot of recognition for it within the company. And then I started using ChatGPT and flowed with that and was really good at it. And then in July of 2023, I kind of branched out and started exploring imagery. And I just, at first, was just having fun with it. I took photos of myself traveling through New Zealand mountainsides and just morphed the photo into another journey with music. And I just thought, it'll bring people to my LinkedIn. Maybe I'll meet some cool people. And then I met more people in the industry and got into Midjourney, and they were like, go, go, go. And so it was just more like a art therapy project. And I never thought it would take me here.
So let's break down its component parts. So you were scratching a creative itch.
Yeah.
You weren't necessarily looking for, I guess, remuneration for your work. You were just like, this floats my boat. Let's go and give it a double click and see where we go. Yeah. And now it's your career. Yeah. This is what you're doing. So where are you at right now in terms of how you're applying that muscle?
Yeah. So when I started looking at what was coming out with imagery and also with different animation softwares like Runway, I started to think, oh my gosh, we can start telling really intricate stories, really beautiful stories. And that could be repurposed to fit, businesses. So you could do advertising. Obviously, you have film, but different ways to convey feeling. I think we're starting to head into a time where advertising is going to become more, I think, about the story and a narrative. And so I just started playing around with concepts for advertising. And I said, why don't we do this, that, or, all these different ideas, and just started storyboarding them out, compiling them. I worked with a few people in the industry. I really love collaborating. So I've collaborated quite a bit with people on Instagram and LinkedIn, and started running spec ads. Mm-hmm. And from there, started landing commercial projects.
Mm. Well, shall we take a look at a commercial project?
We can look at the first spec ad I did.
Yeah, all right. So we've got one up on screen right now. You guys at home should be able to see this. So this is the 2 pieces of cover art, right, for Prompt Magazine?
So this is, right here is my recent publication. So it's the June edition. This has just come out. This is my... I call this Verdant Echoes, and it's my published work. Yeah.
So talk us through it. What was the brief that you were working to?
I really love to focus on surreal and realism. So I like to do a little mixture of both. I think there's something to be said about creating things that aren't already here. And so in this case, I just started really combining ideas of nature with kind of a reflective state. Mm-hmm. And so this was, I really love water, water components, flowing transformation, the idea of finding solitude in nature. And so this was just a culmination of all of that. Mm-hmm. How do we convey the idea of, something really introspective and quiet and connected? And so I just landed here. Yeah.
The interesting thing is for the design brief of this quality and output, probably talking $20,000-$30,000 for someone to do this the old way.
Yeah.
And obviously we're not disclosing what it goes down to at this point, but there's still a thinking process. But the design quality is just exceptional. Should we move to the second one, not the video, just the other page?
Oh yeah, so that's the cover of the magazine. Yeah. So that's another person's work.
Got it. Okay,
yeah. But that's super cool. I mean, the things that people are doing right now is super awesome. And there's some really great creators. And the beauty, I think, of this space is that because I started quite at the beginning of it, I've got to meet a lot of people that are now starting to make their way through the industry. Yeah. So it's a really cool space.
Yeah. Okay. So that's static work. Obviously, the world is not static. The world is moving. Let's take a look at a second piece of work.
Yeah, so this was the first spec ad. I came up with the concept, worked alongside another creator, and we came up together. I think, beautiful things happen when you work with others. So this was a collaborative effort.
Cool. Should we play it, Joelle, and give it a
So this is for REI. This was an REI spec ad.
This is a mixture of Gen AI video tooling.
So this would be Midjourney, and then I upscale the imagery. It's animated in Runway and put together with video editing software.
The world is a crazy place, isn't it? So where does it go to from here? Obviously, that we got to look at AI video creation. We've looked at what OpenAI have done with Sora, what's happening with Midjourney. Yeah. The models at video generation perspective are starting to become really mature now, albeit still relatively short form. Yeah. Like sub a minute for the more advanced models. And it's really only just got to that point of anything of length. Where are you seeing this go in the next literally like 6 months?
The next 6 months, I think we're going to see a radical shift. I think we're starting to see the adoption. For the past 6 to 8 months, I've been working at just developing my craft, learning skills, and it's just now that really you start to see the snowball effect in the design world with it. It was talked about, people were scratching the surface, and I think now we're going to see I don't know if it's going to be full-blown adoption, but I think there are going to be a lot of companies now that are going to start to look at how this can not only cut cost, but also be very effective for short-form advertising. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can rapidly create, advertising and, at the same time, use old school growth marketing tactics where you kind of rapid A/B test and see what works, what doesn't. You can poll your audience and see, where they want to go. And you can also kind of create a more personalized aspect to everything that you're doing. So I think we're going to see a real push in that direction.
I mean, when we're already seeing the notion of the same editorial or I guess design theme, but what converts well for you might not convert well for me, and therefore without reproducing production costs, I just respond to a shorter image or a short or a more rapid cutting cycle or a different tone of voice than what you would.
Yeah, exactly.
Which can all be done on the fly, I guess, to an extent on the fly.
To an extent, I think that, you can create, so we're not seeing it here, but like we had the opportunity to, with another creator, I was able to work on a music video production. We were able to have a turnaround time of 4 to 5 days, about a week if you go into kind of, the OKs and the, all of the checks and balances of working, and contracting out. But yeah, you can rapidly create things. And yeah, it's wild. I still can't even believe how, just what can be done.
There's definitely an undertone of where do the traditional software players sit, not just within artistry and engineering for like video production, etc. But like where do the traditional software players sit, like Adobe, Final Cut, all of those, I guess, monolithic, exceptionally advanced toolings where you essentially needed to go to university to figure out how to use them. I know because I was trained myself in Final Cut and how amazingly powerful it is, but also I don't really want to do that. I just want the outcome. Where do they sit?
When you look at creators now and what they're able to do for the cost, a lot of people are going for open source or free software. So, I mean, Adobe already had problems with Canva, right? Canva's just going really fast, really hard. A lot of companies are starting to kind of default to that. It's easier to use, lower barrier to entry. It's like $20 a month. And they're incorporating AI as well. So I think Adobe had issues well before the full-blown AI movement right now in design. But, like you look at Adobe what is it? Is it Studio? Premiere. Premiere. You have DaVinci Resolve now. Very powerful, and it's free.
Well, that's right. It's interesting that the same conversation we have with our clients is the same conversation that I feel like Adobe may be having with themselves, which is, do you just infuse AI into your product, or do you reimagine what your business is when there is no UI?
Yeah. I think right now, Adobe, I still use it in my workflow. There are still things that I need. Generative fill is quite powerful because sometimes the imagery you're creating is not 100% what you want, and you need to add a final touch to it. But, the question is, as these imagery, creation softwares get more powerful and they add more, tools to their toolkit, where does Adobe sit? Because, in Midjourney right now, I can do vary region. I can update. I can change things in there. And as they become more powerful and as their UI changes, where will Adobe fit? I don't know.
Yeah. And then the flip side of that, as you mentioned Adobe, then you mentioned Canva.
Yeah.
At what point did Canva become attacked from brand new startups? Because Canva itself is a 10, 15-year-old business
Yeah,
now.
Exactly.
And whilst it's widely adopted, it's you can still see that there is a UI-less version of this coming. Which is both brilliant and scary at the same time.
Yeah, and you've got also open source. Everything. I think we're heading into a wild time with all of that. I don't know what to expect. I mean, the space moves so fast that it's really hard to predict. You can the way I go about it is you can see where things are heading. I know, where imagery is heading. I know all of the like Midjourney is going to go to video. I know everyone's kind of going in the same direction. How they get there, what else pops up is kind of like you just got to be with your ear to the ground, kind of listening.
That's right. And I think the main challenge right now is having individuals like yourself that have got their ear to the ground and are staying ahead of this stuff to make sure that people maintain their competitive edge. Look, there'll be a lot of people listening that are like, okay, cool, I can see the application of this in and around my business. Where's the good place for them to start and engage with someone like yourself to kind of get some advice on this kind of stuff?
So the way I got started, in all honesty, was ChatGPT. So I created prompt formulas. I utilized ChatGPT to help me kind of understand the prompting style. So each software has their own prompting style. So I just really utilized ChatGPT to help me. ChatGPT has been, my go-to for a lot of learning. It has just accelerated what I'm able to do. So I've done it that way. Start that way. Start with ChatGPT. Just start playing around. I mean, Midjourney is $10 US a month to play around with. It's just about getting your hands dirty. If you are interested in even any type of creative outlet, I mean, now's the time to get involved. It's a nascent industry. And from what I've learned as well, you meet a lot of really cool people and who knows where they will all go. And so now's the time.
One final question from me, because I'm trying to be a purist, but also a bit of a, I guess, nostalgia in every conversation that we have, because things are changing so quickly. It's important to recognize where we've come from with some of this stuff. Do you see the value of art increasing over time that's physically crafted because of the fact of the amount of AI art that's going to exist?
Yeah, I would like to also preface, I've always been an artist. I just did not have the quote unquote technical training. I paint, I do, a lot of motion art. So I'll do like performance hula hooping. I did a lot of dance. I do photography. I partake in whittling. I've made a ring out of wood. You do a lot of crafts. So I don't see that ever going away. I think that we're just creating a new genre. And like anything else, there's a difference between art and industry in terms of making money and advertising. I think that this is a tool that will help cut costs and increase efficiency. And a lot of companies right now are looking to do that.
Interesting that you're right. I think the nostalgia of making something never goes away, just how we're making it might be.
I think there's always going to be a place for, handmade art, handmade jewelry, handmade anything. It's just a matter of, really where these tools will be used and how they will be used and what industries will use them. So I don't ever see art going away in any capacity. I just think, handmade art, I just see this as being a new genre. And now we're like, okay, we've got this. How do we apply it and make it practical to the way we're using it? Like my friend said to me, it's like, you've learned these skills. Now it's either a hobby that you're just going to have some fun, or you've got to learn to make money out of it. So pick a side. And so I just saw this as a way to go ahead with it.
Yeah. Well, look, congratulations on being published, not just once, multiple times. Yeah. It's evident that the space is going to be exceptionally frantic over the next few years and continuing as we see these technologies come to the floor and businesses flip and change and see the value from them. Yeah. I want to thank you for bringing your art, your expertise, and good chat to the conversation. Yeah. If people want to get hold of you, where's the best place for them to find you?
LinkedIn. I'm there as Jennifer Michtavy. I'm on Instagram as Aesthetic Design, TikTok Aesthetic Design.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. If you're open to it, we'll get you back on throughout the year and see how the landscape's changed.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for your time.
Cool. Thank you.